Because they were beginning to make motors and needed on axles of wheels on railroad trains and all that sort of thing. And remember, trains started in the beginning of the 19th century. Then oil went from just a lubricant to a fuel, and it made it valuable. And Rockefeller happened to be the smartest man in the business at the time, but he made most of his money, or much of it, off the transport of the petroleum as well as selling it. But one thing they realized was, because oil is putting a price on oil is like putting a price on a pail of water. So in order to get the price up, they hit on the idea that they would have to make it appear to be scarce. That after we take the next few barrels out, we're probably going to have to close this well, that kind of thing. There was a convention in Geneva of scientists to determine what organic substances are. Well, the definition of organic is a substance with hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. So at this Geneva Convention, Rockefeller took advantage of sending some scientists over who said, oil, petroleum, is hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. When this scientific convention was over, they defined oil as the residue from formerly living matter. Well, that makes it a fossil fuel. I don't know why they decided to use the word fossil, but it says formerly living matter, it's fossil. Well, of course, today, and another thing we should know is that there has never been a fossil, a real fossil, found below 16,000 feet. And you can't argue at 16,000 as a level line because someplace the ground sinks and so on. But 16 is what the scientists say, 16,000. We mine oil, or we drill for oil, at 30,000, 33,000, 28,000 every day of the week. So right there, we rule it out that it isn't fossil fuel. It's called fossil fuel for the minds of the public to feel that it is an asset that is running out, being depleted. We talk about depletion allowance, which is a lot of, and actually, if you know the world's oil supply, you know that it is not going to run out for an awfully long time. It is the second most prevalent liquid on Earth.
Why are we still using petrol and diesel in the 21st century? The answer is the world is also ruled through the control of energy. So the Rockefellers were the first family to make a fortune from the sale of crude oil. At one point, they had a monopoly over oil in the US, which was against American law. So Standard Oil, the Rockefeller company that monopolized oil, was then broken into several companies to break up the monopoly. Some of the oil companies that came out of Standard Oil when it was broken up are quite familiar to us. They are ExxonMobil, Esso, Mobil, Chevron, and also California Standard Oil. These are just some of the companies that came out of Standard Oil. Then there's OPEC, which is, and OPEC stands for the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, which was founded on the 14th of September 1960 in Baghdad by the first 5 members, which were Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. The organization now has 12 member countries, accounting for 38% of world oil production. In 1944, 44 countries established a new international monetary system, which fixed exchange rates pegged to the US dollar, which is obviously, or was an advantage to the US, and today, to a certain extent, still is an advantage to the US. This was backed by gold and led to a formation of the IMF and World Bank. This system of finance was called the Bretton Woods Agreement. In 1971, the Bretton Woods Agreement collapsed after several countries began redeeming their US dollars for the safety of gold, which led to President Richard Nixon closing the gold window. To maintain the demand for the US dollar, the US created a petrodollar system. The Saudis agreed to price all their oil in US in exchange for the US providing Saudis with weapons, along with the US military building bases to protect Saudi oil fields. In the late 1970s, the US made similar deals with almost all OPEC nations. In the year 2000, Saddam Hussein stopped selling oil in US, but in euros instead, which led to the invasion of Iraq by the US under the pretext that Iraq had WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, and had to be stopped from destroying the world. Obviously, this was a lie. Remember how I said in one of my videos that in Revelation 13, verse 14, I think it's verse 13 and also verse 14, it talks about the US using miracles and also deceptions. So what they do is they tell lies all the time. You know, there's always America always claims to have been attacked, or will claim that a certain country is a threat to it. So therefore, they need to go and invade to stop that country threatening U.S. interests or threatening other countries. Yes, what Saddam Hussein started selling oil in euros instead of US dollars, and the US eventually invaded Iraq. And actually, I also mentioned in my testimonies and also in some other videos that I joined the British Army, and in November 2003, I went to Iraq with my colleagues in the British Army, from the camp that or the regiment that I was a part of. And like I already said, the excuse for going to Iraq was that you know, the Iraqis had weapons of mass destruction, and so I went there in November 2003, and I had a short two-week break in between, and then I left in May 2004. But there were never any weapons of mass destruction that were found there. It was an excuse to not only invade Iraq, but the US has bases in Iraq now, and even though the Iraqis have demanded that they should leave, they haven't left. That's how America has also, in similar ways, has ended up with so many bases in different countries. And when I spoke about how the world is ruled through military power, I spoke about how America has between 750 to 800 military bases around the world. So in 1953, the legitimately elected government in Iran, led by Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, was overthrown in a coup that was orchestrated by the CIA and the British intelligence. And in fact, that was the second coup. The first coup attempt failed. The reason for the coup was that Mossadegh, the prime minister, had nationalized the Iranian oil industry. Britain controlled Iran's oil for decades through its Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. Mossadegh denied the British any further involvement in Iran's oil industry after he nationalized it. Britain appealed to the US for help, which led to the CIA orchestrating the coup and the restoration of the last Shah of Iran. So this Shah of Iran who took power after Mossadegh and his government were removed, this Shah was actually just a puppet of the West. So especially I think everyone knows that there's a lot of oil in the Middle East, and even Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote a book called The Grand Chessboard, which I actually have in my house, where he spoke about how the Middle East was of strategic importance to the US and to Western countries, because there's a lot of resources there. And even Afghanistan, actually, they wanted to build an oil pipeline there that would cut through Afghanistan and Pakistan. I can't remember exactly where the pipeline would end, but I'm just saying that to show that even Afghanistan is we are often shown videos or photos of Afghanistan being depicted as a very poor country, but they also have resources, and they even have emeralds there as well. And obviously, it's the environment in Afghanistan is conducive for the growing of poppies, from which heroin can be manufactured. And so after 9/11, or before 9/11, the production of heroin had actually gone down because the Taliban, on the orders of Mullah Omar, who was a leader at the time, had started destroying the poppy plants. But after 9/11, when the Americans invaded along with their NATO allies, the production of heroin actually went up by about 90%, in terms of the world supply of heroin. So it's what we're told in the mass media is never the truth about why wars are going on. There's always a hidden reason behind, or a hidden agenda behind why some of these wars are happening. So I just wanted to talk about suppressed inventions. There have been many individuals who have been assassinated for inventing technology that basically frees us from the chokehold of the oil companies. Excuse me. So I'm sure everyone knows or has heard of Nikola Tesla, which is where we get the name for the cars that are being, the electric vehicles that are being made by Elon Musk's company. Basically, when he named his cars Tesla, but actually that's the surname of an inventor whose full name was Nikola Tesla. He was one of the greatest inventors who invented AC electricity, alternate current electricity, versus DC current. And in fact, when Nikola Tesla invented AC electricity, he was told that it would never catch on, it would never work, and that it was dangerous. But now, I think pretty much everywhere in the world now, homes use mostly AC electricity. So Tesla also wanted to make electricity free to the people of the world. The man who funded Tesla's experiments was John Pierpont Morgan. It's well known as J.P. Morgan. It's mostly referred to as J.P. Morgan, but that's his full name, John Pierpont Morgan, who also owned the White Star Line company that built the Titanic, which was purposely sunk in 1912 to kill the rich men and women who opposed the setting up of the privately owned Federal Reserve. When J.P. Morgan found out that Tesla wanted to provide free electricity by means of towers that provided electricity wirelessly, he said he would not fund Tesla's inventions because he could not put a meter on them. So basically, that's one of the ways that Tesla was destroyed. J.P. Morgan was more interested in making money than helping humanity. When Tesla died as a poor man in a hotel room, his files were stolen from his safe by government agents, one of whom was Donald Trump's uncle.